It's very dangerous to tell a comedian that they're like a musician because all we want to be is musicians. Yeah.
Thank you guys for joining us on the Elation podcast today, where we enjoy exhilarating euphoria through creation and collaboration. Today we are here with Mary Ryan Brown, right?
Yeah.
That sounds like like I'm David Lee Adams. It sounds like they're like very predominant names all the way through.
Yes. Well, it's very Southern to have a double name,
Yes,
right? So I have
yes.
two names as my first name and then a last name. It's
Right.
very Southern to be that way.
That was David
Mary
Lee.
Catherine Smith, John Wilkes Booth, all of those. Yeah.
Yeah. So it definitely makes you feel Southern when someone calls. Well, when someone says David Lee, I feel like I'm in trouble.
Yeah, and you are.
Yeah, well, normally, but anyway, no, there's a lot of things we do down here that's a little quirky. So,
For sure.
But where are you from?
I'm from Hattiesburg, Mississippi.
Hattiesburg.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, I've lived there my whole life.
Love Hattiesburg.
Yeah.
So we had a ranch in Poplarville for a while.
No way.
Yeah.
Okay, very
Yeah,
nice.
so-
What'd you do down there? Did you hunt?
Yeah, we had horses,
Mhm.
and hunted, and we had ponds and stuff we fishing and stuff. It was a great place. It was my grandfather owned it, and sold it right after Katrina, which now that I have kids, I regret being okay with, but it was it was a beautiful time. We loved it up there. We went every time we needed to go see a movie. We had to go to Hattiesburg.
Gotta go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's great. I love Mississippi.
Yeah, I do too. It's an interesting place, especially being right next to Louisiana. And my husband's from right outside of New Orleans in Covington. So I don't know, for as close as they are, I actually find the two to be extremely different. And it's fun to go between the two.
Yeah,
So,
it's definitely different. New Orleans is always its own
yeah.
entity.
Yes. Yes.
And I feel like the North Shore is its own entity as well. So
The North Shore is its own entity.
Yeah.
It's totally wild.
my brother-in-law is from Slidell, and there's nobody like him.
No. No.
But tell me a little bit about your career and your journey. Where did you go to school?
I went to USM in Hattiesburg, University of Southern Mississippi.
Did you go there for a certain reason?
Yes, actually, my high school boyfriend. So
Gotcha. All right.
yes. I had a scholarship to go to Alabama, actually, to be on their debate team. And so I had that all lined up, and I had done the tour. I even did a kind of like a mini sorority rush where you got to go to all the sorority houses. And it was very cool. Definitely gave me a lot of inspo for these videos I'm creating now. But I had that all lined up, had a roommate, and then my boyfriend at the time, he went to Southern Miss. He was a year older than I was, so he was already in college, and he said, you really need to come to Southern Miss because if you don't, I'll break up with you. And I was like, oh, no.
No, so all my dreams and aspirations, gone.
Yes, exactly. And so, I kind of convinced my parents. I was like, well, I have more scholarship money at USM, and they didn't want to say no because, I was going to be closer to them if I went to USM. So I went to USM, ended up breaking up with that guy pretty quickly. However, yes, that's how it happens, exactly.
Yeah.
However, it ended up being the best experience. I studied English literature for undergrad, graduated a year early, got my master's in creative writing at USM, and then took a year off to be a yoga teacher.
Wow. Okay.
And spin instructor and personal trainer, and then went right back into the doctorate program at USM for creative writing.
Boy, I bet your boyfriend's upset now after a yoga teacher.
Yes. Oh, and we're so many boyfriends down
so many
the
boyfriends
line
down the line
at this point. Yeah, so many. Not even. I don't even remember the first boyfriend we were talking about at this point.
Perfect.
But I was in the doctoral program at USM and then dropped out during COVID and started working full time as a writer for a marketing agency.
Okay.
So that's kind of my professional background. While I was working as a writer for this marketing agency. So I've always written. I've always been just enamored with story, and I write fiction on the side and poetry and all of that stuff. I have a lot of feelings. And I've always had a lot of feelings.
A lot of feelings.
Yes. Oh, so many feelings. And so I was working as a writer for this marketing agency, and I had my daughter. I had just had my daughter. And I had postpartum depression, and my daughter had colic. And so you have kids, right?
Yeah.
So she was just up all night crying, poor thing, and so I would stay up with her and feed her and watch comedy specials. I've always been a huge comedy fan, SNL, stand-up specials,
Right.
the whole thing. My parents are really funny people, really, really funny people, and they exposed me to a steady diet of comedy growing up. So, started watching comedy specials, and I was interested in the structure of them. As a writer, I really like to sort of I don't want to make it sound too intellectual, but I like to reverse engineer things and
No,
figure out how they work, you know?
absolutely, 100%.
So while I was dealing with this depression that really brought me to the end of myself, is very
It's
scary.
tough. I mean, I watched
Yeah,
my wife go through it,
yeah,
and she didn't have it as bad as, I'm sure a lot of women do, but,
yeah.
definitely affected her, Still
It's insane.
still does. My youngest is 20 months.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah, y'all
still
are still in it
yeah,
for sure. It does, it affects you, and I mean, there's so much going on physically, you really kind of, especially as a first-time mom, I didn't trust myself. I just felt, like, totally unworthy of this person that I love so much, but I felt I couldn't, take
right.
care of her. And I knew because I've had regular depression my whole life, I kinda knew I was a candidate for postpartum. I knew to seek help. I have a great family, great support system, so I got help right away, which was excellent. That being said, it was still extremely challenging, but I knew from previous, encounters with mental health problems that I needed to do something
Need an
to.
outlet.
I needed an outlet, and
Yeah.
I needed to. I was feeling so many irrational feelings. I needed to get into my analytical brain.
Mhm.
So I would watch these comedy specials and I would pause them every 10 seconds and write down everything the comic was saying. And I would denote the pauses in the specials as well, just to kind of figure out the structure of it, see what it felt like to write a really good joke.
Right.
So I started doing that, and I told my best friend about it. My best friend, she's a medical resident here in New Orleans, actually, and she was like, "Well, you're writing these jokes and you're studying stand up. Maybe you should do
Do
it."
stand up.
And I was like, "Oh, I could never." Which, of course, like it's only been my dream forever. But I was like, "What? No, me, absolutely not." But when my daughter was like a year and a half, about a year and a half, is when I went to my first open mic, and I just watched. My husband and I went on date night in Hattiesburg at the Hub City Comedy open mic. I just watched. We did that 2 more times where I just watched, and then, I got up the 3rd time and, did 4 minutes of jokes that I had prepared, and I haven't stopped
That's
since then.
awesome.
So, yeah.
That's awesome. Well, comedy is a great outlet. I've always loved comedy. And my family's always watched them too, Richard Pryor's and
Yeah.
George Carlin and, he's got Carlin's got some of my favorite one-liners, Rodney Dangerfield
Mhm.
and, but eh, the comics are always telling jokes to help themselves.
Yes.
And it's a great way for you to internalize your problems, laugh at them, and make fun of the problem to where the problem doesn't defeat you.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
almost separates you two in a sense
Yeah.
from the you and the problem. I feel like it completely separates that dynamic of internally beating myself up.
Absolutely. And if you can laugh at whatever the problem or the circumstance is, you've robbed it of its power,
Right.
right? And so it's been extremely helpful for me, and I love it, and I'm addicted to it too. I mean, I love attention, and so I love when you're performing live and you do get that feedback. It's kind of dangerous. You
Well,
have to keep yourself in check.
and you were talking about noting pauses. Pauses are one of the most
Yeah,
powerful moments.
yeah.
That timed quiet space
Hmm.
is awkward and supposed to make you feel something.
Yeah,
And it's the same in music. I mean, you guys are
yeah.
musicians, in my opinion, in a sense, because of uh, how you musically say your words and how you
Hmm.
time things.
Yeah, there's a rhythm to it
Yeah,
for sure. And the patterns
yeah,
too. If you think about, and again, it's very dangerous to tell a comedian that they're like a musician because all we want to be
Oh,
as
I know. That's
musicians.
part
Yeah.
of the deal. I mean, Eddie Murphy and like all
Yes.
these guys that I mean, Adam Sandler singing with the
Yes.
guitar, and Andrew Dice Clay. That's all he wanted to
Uh-huh.
be was a rock star.
Oh, that's
You
exact. I
know,
literally posted a video of me singing to TikTok today. I love to sing. If I could sing better, I wouldn't be doing this crap. You
right?
know what
You're
I
right, right,
mean?
right. And, yeah,
But when you think about the construction of a song, you've got the verse and then the chorus and then the bridge. Like every good set kind of needs to have a bridge as
absolutely.
well. Like that
Yep.
moment where you're just kind of like putting it all on the line and there's a moment of like really high energy
Right.
and then you go back to the chorus to like close it all out. So anyway, yeah, there's definitely a rhythm to it.
Um. Well, okay. So stand up also has a lot of interaction,
Yeah, yeah,
right? And that could change the dynamics of where you're headed in your
100%.
story, right? How
Yeah.
do you deal with some of that?
Ooh, it's so much fun. It's so much fun to deal with all of that. One is by taping all of my sets. So even if I'm not videotaping it, I'm always like voice recording
Right.
my set so I can study how I'm interacting with the crowd. If I'm able to pull the narrative back in where I'm not losing people.
Right.
But I love interacting with the crowd. I didn't at first because you're just so nervous you can barely manage your own energy.
And remembering what you have to say. Yeah.
Exactly. But now, it's way more fun to sort of like observe the energy of the room, feed off of the context, and just be the conductor
Right.
of that energy. But that being said, the way that I sort of construct, and again, I don't want to sound like some, snob or something, but the way I think of it from like a writer's
Hmm.
standpoint, I construct each set so that the blocks are movable. So like I have one block here that's about me as a mom. I have one about me as a wife. I have one about me, being obsessed with myself or whatever. And I can move those around. I know my starting point. I know my end point.
Right.
And as long as the beginning and the end stay the same, I can interchange the fragments in the middle.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Well, there's also different types of comics
Yeah.
too, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, like Lisa Lampanelli, who just
Yes.
looks at the crowd and just beats the shit out of you.
Yes, she does.
That's,
Yeah.
I don't think there's much of a story she walks up there to tell, right?
No. No.
But then you've got like, your Chris Rocks where the entire thing is a story that he's trying to tell you about his life.
Yeah.
Some of the later ones that he did, not the last two Netflix specials he did, but the one he did, like, I think it was Never Scared. It was like right after he had gotten divorced.
Okay.
Or it was after he got divorced and he was like now explaining his new life as a divorced dad and all this stuff. But he got really personal with some of the the comment, and I felt like I learned a lot about him in those sets. Those are the ones that I really like. Comics that I feel like are giving me those real moments. Robin Williams is one of my favorites.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and that's not just there for you.
No.
That sits there. No, Robin was when I met him when I was 22.
Really?
Yeah, 22. Yeah, in Vegas. I went after Katrina. They did for the Comedy Week in Vegas. They did a live broadcast from TBS and HBO, and they did a fundraising situation for Katrina.
Is the background for that fundraiser a bunch of shotgun houses? Do you remember? Was the background on the stage a bunch of shotgun houses?
Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was Sarah Silverman there?
It was
Okay.
Robin Williams, Whoopi Goldberg, and Billy Crystal were the three hosts.
Yeah, yeah.
So I got tickets to it, and I was being brought down to my seats, and I had good seats, and for the main event where they were all hosting and doing the broadcast, and the guy's walking me down the aisle and he's talking, and I'm like, something sounds familiar. Where are you from? I'm from New Orleans. Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and blah 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 blah. He's from the I think it was the 11th ward or something like that, and we started talking, and I said, "Hey, what's it gonna cost me to get a backstage pass?" He goes, "Be right back." He goes and comes back about 20 minutes later, and he like wings me over, and I come out like I'm going to the bathroom, and he hands me two passes, and I said, how much? And I was with my fiance at the time, not my current wife.
Sure, several fiancés ago. Yeah.
And so I throw him some money, and next thing you know, I'm backstage with everybody. And
Oh my gosh.
So I ended up talking to, I think it was Cat Williams. I was thinking of smoking a blunt with Cat.
Sure.
And my fiance at the time was talking to this chick, and I had no idea who she was. And so I go over there and I'm talking to them, and then the show had just ended.
Mhm.
Robin comes right off stage, comes right up to this chick and gives her a hug and a kiss and starts talking to us and like introduces himself to us. I come to realize this is Robin's daughter, Zelda.
Oh, wow, wow.
And so, so we talked for a minute, and I was wearing a crazy like iced out watch. He was giving me shit about my watch, and then he had to go do press pictures and stuff. And when he came back, we were all still talking, and he gave us our own little press like picture tour, and we talked for like 45 minutes. Like he was just awesome, and just a great person. And but I love the real moments on scenes and sets that he gives you through movies and through comedy that you can just tell it's just a real person.
Yeah,
It's not an
yeah,
act. You
yeah,
know.
and he was so funny, but, I mean, obviously, I'm not saying anything new here, but he had so much sadness
Oh yeah,
in
right.
him, you
Well, and
know?
that was what I guess his outlet was helping him get through all that stuff. I
Yeah,
think in the end, though, I think part of being on stage and being very public is probably what created that environment for him to do what he did at the end,
yeah,
because he didn't want anybody to see him with Parkinson's, which is
sure,
what he was coming up with.
yeah,
So there's definitely there's a light in that tunnel, and then it became a sad tunnel at the
yeah,
end.
for sure.
Um, but anyway, I comedy is just such an amazing thing. So I'm glad you found it, because it definitely helps.
So it sounds like to me you were at the show where my favorite joke of all time was told.
Okay.
So, because you said Sarah Silverman was there.
Yeah.
Okay, so when I was in high school, I used to watch all sorts of Sarah Silverman, clips on YouTube, in between debate tournaments. Okay, I was that kind of person, and she told a joke, and I'm probably going to butcher it now, but at this show where it was for Katrina, and I'm not even gonna rehearse the whole joke, but the punchline on it was so, so bizarre. She talks about, she goes on and on, very melodramatic about how charitable she is and how much she gives to other people, and that she gave 15 sweaters to this village in Africa. And it was enough for every child in the village to have one. And the kids say, and they were delicious. And I just remember being like, I want to write stuff like that.
Right.
Even when I was like on the high school debate team, and it wasn't my explicit dream to be a stand-up comic. I knew that like it would be so worth it if I could just write one little zinger like that. But yeah, that is so cool that you were at that show and that you got to meet Robin Williams.
Yeah,
Incredible.
but before you leave, I got the poster upstairs. I'll have to show you.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
this is like a part of my core identity.
Oh, that's awesome. No,
Um,
it
yeah.
was a great show. It was
It's
a great
incredible.
show. Yeah, no, it was a great show, and it was a whole week of comedy. So like the week or the couple days before, you go to Dane Cook, you
Mhm.
go to Kimmel, you go to who else? Who else did we see? Uh, Billy Crystal did his own set. Robin never did his own set. He just was
Okay.
part of the host.
Yeah.
I think Dane was the one that I liked the most that did their own set. Cat did his own set. But anyway, it was just, I felt like it was a great time in comedy too,
Yeah. Yeah,
you
for
know?
sure.
But how do you feel about comedy nowadays? Because you've kind of did it in this social environment that we're in now. It's kind of cancel culture-ish.
Yeah, it is. It is. I love it. I personally love it. I mean, being a woman in comedy is great because there aren't a ton of us, especially in the Gulf South, like regional comedy scene. So we all stick together, and I've made some great friends because there aren't a ton of female comedians. But I I love it. I mean, when I started doing it, I was in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, you know what I mean? And I
Right.
still am based in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. I didn't know what the etiquette was. I didn't know anything, and I
Right.
kind of just started acting delusional from the outset. I did it once. I fell in love with it. I booked a show. The very first open mic I did, I was asked to be on like a local showcase. And so, because I have this background in marketing, I made myself a website and
Right.
I started, posting my clips to the internet. Really didn't gain that much traction, but just kind of acted like I had it
Right.
until I started to get more of it, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Um,
As an artist, we all do.
yeah.
At some point, we have to be delusional enough to put
Yes.
it out,
Yes,
right?
exactly. And so the delusion really, really served me well. And sometimes I look back and cringe and I'm like, oh my God, I was making show graphics and putting my open mic dates on these show graphics. Like, come on. Like terrible. So terrible. But it
It
worked.
worked.
And the other thing is I do have a very supportive and honest family. So they kept me from doing anything like too crazy.
Right.
And it was good to be grounded. I'm glad I didn't start doing comedy when I was like in my early 20s and literally insane. I'm glad I went down the yoga teaching route or whatever.
You learned how to meditate first.
I did. I learned how to meditate. Yeah. So I'm glad I didn't start until I was married and had a daughter and had some things to ground me from a very dangerous level of delusion that I've
Right.
kind of always had. That being said, how do I feel about comedy at large? I love it. I mean, I think the pendulum is swinging the other way and people are craving kind of offensive stuff more.
Punch me in the face.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. People
Yeah.
are like, hurt me. I want to be hurt.
Yeah.
And when I first started out, I was very angry because I was depressed. I had postpartum and I was working through that. And so my material was very raw and edgy and my whole shtick was being this, kind of like blonde mom getting up there and just like cussing up a storm and talking about anything and
Right.
everything under the sun. And I really, as I've progressed in my comedy, I've become less angry, more silly. I'm really more PG-13 now. I enjoy all types of comedy, but I'm really not as like raunchy. I used
Right.
to love being raunchy, and I would like write that about myself in my bio on my on my website, she's raunchy.
Raunchy.
And now I'm just like absurd, just totally absurd.
I feel like it's one of those words that went around for a little bit. Raunchy,
Yes.
ratchet, like all
Ratchet,
yeah, like
exactly.
that same cycle.
Yes, it really was. And I think I think I was mad at myself. I think I was mad at, this idea of motherhood and then what it actually was.
Well, it
and-
was the original outlet, and you had to get the
Yeah.
anger out first.
Yes, so that came out first, but now I'm just having fun.
Right.
And I've grown a lot as a person. You would think going to bars and clubs all the time, I've actually gotten sober and like become a lot more of a gentle person through comedy. I still have a long way to go, but it's been interesting. I think I'm just a little bit more like silly now because I don't feel like I have to prove myself or that I have to shock people in order to make them laugh.
Right.
You
Confidence. It gives
Yeah.
you the ability to just say a joke without having to give it a kicker.
Yes. Yes.
And the kickers doesn't always make sense.
No, it doesn't.
You
It
know?
doesn't.
Well, no, and that's great. Well, so, what is your favorite joke you're telling now?
My favorite joke that I'm telling right now. Oh goodness. Okay, so I have a couple jokes about church. And so I go to church. I'm a person of faith. I'm a Christian. And so I have this joke about black church and white church and the difference between the two. And the difference is that white church could have been an email. And so I kind of talk about that and like just growing up a kind of like waspy chick,
Right.
I have that. And then non-denominational people, I have this whole bit about people being non-denominational. It's like the original non-binary, You'll be like, what kind of church is this? And they'll be like, what kind of church isn't this? And so those are
That's
really
good.
fun. Well,
Yeah.
thank you. I've grown in my faith a lot actually in comedy. And I think it's really fun to joke about your religion as well. And I think there's a way to do it in like a way that's respectful,
Absolutely.
So I have fun doing that and just kind of poking fun at like the absurdity of it all.
I've never read in the Bible that says don't laugh.
No, I'm pretty sure God likes it.
Yeah.
He likes it.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think he would make laughing feel so good if it wasn't meant. You
Yeah.
weren't meant to laugh, but but that's funny. Those are great. I love those jokes.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
And I had not to say now, look, I would get probably kicked off the church circuit because not all my jokes are like that. I'm PG-13.
Right.
But it's been fun to sort of explore, my own relationship to religion, because I have an interesting sort of backstory of, growing up in a private Christian school and then kind of becoming this like Marxist lady in college. And then like, not, you can be a Marxist and be a Christian, whatever. But like, I kind of have this like winding road as far as my faith journey is concerned. So it's been fun to,
Learning will do that to you, though.
learning will do that to you,
Yeah.
right? And it's not all linear.
No.
Learning more about the world, learning more about yourself. And so it's been so fun to kind of come full circle and explore that in my comedy.
Well, if it is linear, it's not real learning, because
Exactly.
you got to take the curve
Yes.
to actually learn that left or right.
Yeah.
And then you turn back, But if you just stay here, you're never going to learn anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so I mean, we hit on a lot of things that I wanted to talk about,
Sure.
but I feel like there has to be a favorite comedian
Sure.
that has implemented the most in you as far as what you do in your career and what you do on stage.
Oh, there's so many. And there's some that I admire for like their work ethic and their business practices, some that I admire for their charisma, some for their writing, for their material. So it's all a little different. I love Tom Segura. I think he's so silly.
Yeah.
I love Neil Brennan. I went to see him at the Joy last year. He's Dave Chappelle's,
Yep.
writing partner.
Yeah.
Love him. He's also like a fellow sad guy, and so I love some sad guy comedy. He recently though he did DMT, and now he's happy,
Now he's
which is like
happy.
so boring. No, it's great. Good for
we
Neil.
don't
Good
let
for
you get in
Neil.
touch with yourself. Don't don't internalize
Exactly.
anything and come out happy.
Yes, please, please. I love Leanne Morgan. I absolutely adore her. Zarna Garg, if you haven't heard of Zarna Garg, she's coming up. She's incredible. She's a New York comedian, Indian American woman, hardest working comic, I think, on the scene right now. She's a mom. She has 3 kids, and it's incredible what she's doing in comedy.
Awesome.
So funny. And then Jacqueline Novak, who just put out Get on Your Knees, which is a 90-minute comedy special. It's so meticulously written and performed that when I saw it, I was like, well, I have to quit. So those are just some of my favorites right now. But I could go on and on. I love Bill Burr. I love Xing Wang. I think he's super funny. He does clean comedy really well. Jen Fulweiler's really funny to me. So
What do you think about Matt Rife?
sure. Yeah, sure. I think that I think that I have a similar jawline to Matt Rife. I think his crowd work is good, and it's a certain type of comedy for people. It's not my like favorite, but I think people hate on him because he's successful, and I don't appreciate that.
So he's not a comic that I would watch a special.
Yeah.
But he's a comic I would go to his show.
Oh, 100%.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like I don't feel like his stories and what he does, I don't feel like they're that great. But I feel like when he gets in with the crowd, that's when he's at his best.
Yes, and it's so good, and it's one night is so different from the next night. So yeah, his crowd work is incredible. He does wear the headset.
Yes, he does. Which
I don't like the head. I'll say
I
it.
agree.
I don't like the headset, and I love
agree.
Ricky Gervais.
But I was going to say Ricky
wears-
does it. Ricky
he
does
does
it.
the Britney
Ricky
headset.
does it. He
but
does
Ricky's
it.
Ricky. Ricky can do anything he wants.
With the Foster's beer, where he could do anything he wants. Yeah.
Yes.
All bought and paid for.
That's right.
Yeah, I love Ricky.
Yeah.
When he did the Oscars was
incredible.
that was one of those moments like, okay, I really like you now, like as a comic and just real person. Like I love that.
He's so endearing, and also his acting's really good. Like he has this show on Netflix called Afterlife that is so sad but so funny. It's about this guy whose wife dies. She has cancer, and he like hates the world and wants to die, but he like finds a way to keep going. And I mean, he just brings his Ricky-ness to it. I think he's incredible. Yeah.
Well, I love The Idiot Abroad too.
Yeah.
It was the
for sure.
most expensive practical joke ever done or something like that.
Yeah.
So anyway, but well, good. We could probably go on for hours with comics.
Yeah.
But well, it was great having you today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Where can everybody find your comedy?
Yes, you can find me at Mary Ryan Brown on Instagram. The O in Brown is a 0. MaryRyanBrown.com for show dates and for links to my podcast, Super Freak, and for bios and everything else you need to know about me. And then I'm Mary Ryan Brown Comedy on TikTok.
Awesome. When's your next show?
My next show is December 19th in New Orleans.
There you go.
Yes.
Where are you playing?
I believe it's called the Blue Crawfish in the Treme. I know it's in the
okay.
Treme.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, good. Everybody
Yeah.
go out and see, because I enjoy your couple jokes you spent on
Well,
you
thank
told
you.
us here, and I can't wait to
Audience
see
of
more.
one.
Yeah. Well, hey, you got to start somewhere.
That's right. That's right.
Well, awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you
and
so much
thank
for
you
having
guys
me.
for enjoying us, and please like, subscribe, and watch more if you like the content. Thanks.